Today's lesson is on using charts to compare unit rates. In this first table, it says the table shows the cost of 3 different brands of paper. There's brand A, brand B, and brand C. Which brand of paper costs the most per ream? So in the first one, brand A says the amount purchased is 3 reams and the amount paid was $13.50. So to find how much they paid per ream, you would take the total amount paid, which is $13.50, and you would divide it by the 3 reams to find out how much each one costs. So we have 13 and 50 hundredths divided by 3/1, which equals 13 times 100 is 1,300, plus 50 is 1,350 over 100 divided by 3/1. So following the rules for dividing fractions, we have to keep the first one, and flip the second one, and then change to multiplication. So looking the first way, on 101 we can't cross simplify, but then we look at 1,350 and 3, and you could divide by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 1,350 divided by 3 would give you 450. So when you multiply across, 450 times 1 is 450. 100 times 1 is 100. Since it's an improper fraction, we need to turn it into a mixed number. So 100 goes into 450 4 times, with 50 out of 100 left over. We want to write this as a decimal, so we have 4 and 50 hundredths. So for brand A, they paid $4.50 per ream. So we'll write that in on the top. Okay, so now let's do brand B. It says that they purchased 4 reams for $20.20. So we want to take the total amount that they paid, which was $20.20, and divide it by the total amount purchased, which is 4. So we have 20 and 20 hundredths divided by 4/1. Follow the rules for dividing fractions. First, we want to make this into an improper fraction. 20 times 100 is 2,000, plus 20 is 2,020. Over 100, we keep the first fraction, we flip the second fraction, and then you change to multiplication. So 2,020 can be divided by 4. So we're going to cross simplify. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 2,020 divided by 4 is 505. Multiply across. 505 times 1 is 505. 100 times 1 is 100. Let's make it into a mixed number since it's an improper fraction. So 100 goes into 505 5 times, with 5 out of 100 left over. We can write this as a decimal, so we have 5 and 5 hundredths. So for brand B, you end up paying $5.05 per ream. Okay, so now we need to find out how much we end up paying per ream for brand C. So it says 2 reams cost $10.80. So you always take the total of how much you paid, which is $10.80, and you divide it by how much you bought. So $10.80 is 10 and 80 over 100, divided by 2/1. We need to turn it into an improper fraction. So 10 times 100 is 1,000, plus 80 is 1,080. over 100. Keep the first fraction, flip the second fraction, change to multiplication. So in this one, we can cross simplify. We can divide 1080 by 2. We would have 540. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Multiply across. 540 times 1 is 540. 100 times 1 is 100. 100 goes into 540 5 times. With 40 hundredths left over, we can write that as a decimal, so 5 and 40 hundredths. So the cost for brand C is $5.40 per ream. So the question is, which brand costs the most? So we would look at our chart and we find that brand C actually costs the most per ream. Pause the video and try this practice problem on your own. Okay, let's go over the problem. It says for an onion, if you purchase 2 pounds, you'd pay $7.60. So we need to find out how much you would pay per pound. So you take the total amount paid, which is $7.60, and divide it by how much you bought, which is 2 pounds. So that would end up being 760 over 100 times 1 over 2. Because we were dividing, so we turn them into fractions. You keep, flip, and change. Cross simplify. We can divide 760 by 2. And you would have 380. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Multiply across. 380 times 1 is 380. 100 times 1 is 100. 100 goes into 380 3 times, with 80 out of 100 left over, which is $3.80. So fill in our chart. The onions cost $3.80 per pound. Now we have our cauliflower. It says for 3 pounds you pay a total of $7.50. So you take the total amount paid, divide it by how much you bought, which would be 750 over 100, divided by 3 over 1. Turn it into an improper fraction, so you would get 750 over 100 times 1 over 3, because we kept, we flipped, and we changed. See if you can cross simplify. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 750 divided by 3 is 250. Multiply across, you have 250 over 100, which equals 100 goes into 250 2 times, with 50 out of 100 left over. Turn that into a decimal, that is 2 and 50 hundredths. So the cost per pound for cauliflower is $2.50. Now let's do the asparagus. $9.30 is the total amount paid, and they bought 1.5 pounds of asparagus. So you take the total amount paid, which is $9.30, divide it by the total amount purchased, which is 1.5 pounds. That is 9 and 30 over 100, divided by 1 and 5/10. Turn them into improper fractions and keep, flip, change. So we end up with 930 over 100, then 10 over 15, because we flipped the second fraction, and now we change to multiplication. See if we can cross simplify. 10 divided by 10 is 1. 100 divided by 10 is 10. 15 divided by 15 is 1. 930 divided by 15 is 62. Oh, sorry. So 62 times 1 is 62. 10 times 1 is 10. turn that into a mixed number. So 10 goes into 62 6 times with 2/10 left over. Write this as a decimal, 6 and 2/10, but since we're working with money, it always needs to end in the hundredths place, so we'll add a 0. So our answer is $6.20. So the question says, which vegetable costs the most per pound? So looking at our chart, we find out that asparagus actually costs the most per pound, which is $6.20 per pound. Now pause the video and try this practice problem on your own. Okay, let's go over the problem. So we'll start with white rice, which they paid $16 in total for 64 ounces. And they want us to find out how much it costs per ounce. So you want to take the total that you purchased it for, which was $16, divide it by the amount that you bought, which was 64 ounces. Turn them into fractions. Keep the first one. Flip the second one. Change to multiplication. See if we can cross simplify. In this one we can. 16 divided by 16 is 1. 64 divided by 16 is 4. Multiply across, you have 1. 1 times 4 is 4. We can turn this into a decimal since we know 1/4 is 25 hundredths. Our answer is 25 cents per ounce. So we'll fill in our chart. White rice costs 25 cents per ounce. Now let's work on brown rice. Brown rice was $33.60 divided by the 96 ounces purchased. That's 33 and 60 hundredths divided by 96 over 1. Keep the first fraction. Flip the second fraction, change to multiplication. We want to cross simplify. And we can actually divide by 96. So 96 divided by 96 is 1. 3,360 divided by 96 equals 35. Multiply across. 35 times 1 is 35. 100 times 1 is 100. We can turn this into a decimal, 35 hundredths. So that means they would pay 35 cents per ounce. So fill in our chart. Brown rice costs 35 cents per ounce. Now we'll do the last type of rice, which is $14.40 for 48 ounces. So write that out, $14. The total amount paid divided by the total amount purchased. So that's $14.40 divided by 48 over 1. Keep the first fraction. Flip the second fraction and change to multiplication. We want to see if we can cross simplify. So we have 48 divided by 48, which is 1. 1,440 divided by 48 is 30. Multiply across, 30 times 1 is 30. 100 times 1 is 100. 30 hundredths we can turn into a decimal. So that would mean 30 cents per ounce. So the question says, which type of rice costs the most per ounce? So looking at our chart, we see that brown rice actually costs the most per ounce. Pause the video and try this practice problem on your own. Okay, let's start to go over this problem. It says potatoes for 5 pounds cost $4. So we want to find out the cost per pound. So you do the total amount paid, which was $4, divide it by the amount purchased, which was 5 pounds, turn them into fractions, keep the first one, flip the second one, change to multiplication. Multiply across, you have 4 times 1 is 4, 1 times 5 is 5. 4/5, if we want to turn that into a decimal, we can have 8/10 as a fraction, which could be written as 0.8 as a decimal, but since we're working with money, we want to make sure it ends in the hundredths place, so we can add on a 0. So we find 80 cents per pound. Now let's find out how much it costs per pound for carrots. It says it was $3 for 5 pounds, so you take the total amount paid, which is $3, divide it by the amount purchased, which is 5 pounds. Keep the first fraction, flip the second fraction, change to multiplication. So 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 5 is 5. We want to turn this into a decimal, so we want it to have a denominator of 10, 100, or 1,000. So we can easily make it into a denominator of 10. 5 times 2 is 10. Whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. So we have 6/10, which we can write as a decimal, but since we're working with money, we want to add a 0 on the end, so it ends in the hundredths place. So we found that the cost per pound for carrots is 60 cents. And now we just have to do the onions. So the onions is $2.50 paid for 2 pounds. You want to take the total amount paid and divide it by the total amount purchased. Turn it into fractions. Keep the first one. Flip the second one. Change to multiplication. So 250 times 1. Oh, actually, we can cross simplify. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 250 divided by 2 is 125. 125 times 1 is 125. 100 times 1 is 100. So 100 goes into 125 one time. With 25 hundredths left over, we can turn this into a decimal, so we have 1 and 25 hundredths, so $1.25. So the question says, what type of food costs the most per pound? So looking at our chart, we found that the onions cost the most per pound. Okay, try this last problem on your own. You want to find out which fruit costs the most per pound. Okay, let's go over the problem. So we'll start with the mangoes. It says that the amount purchased was 2 pounds and the amount paid was $2.60, and they want to find out how much it costs per pound. So you want to take the total amount paid, which is $2.60, and divide it by the total amount purchased, which was 2 pounds. So $2.60 divided by 2 equals $1.30. So fill in our chart. For pears, the total cost was $3.50, so you always want to put the total cost first, divided by the amount purchased, which was 2.5 pounds. So $3.50 divided by 2 and 5/10 would equal $1.40. So we'll fill in our chart. Pears cost $1.40 per pound. For oranges, it says for 2 and 25 pounds, it costs $2.70. So you always want to take the total amount paid and divide it by the total amount purchased. So $2.70 divided by 2 and a fourth pounds would equal $1.20 per pound. So we'll fill in our chart. So now we can answer our question. It says, which fruit costs the most per pound? So looking at our chart and the information we collected, we find that the pears cost the most per pound, which is $1.40 per pound.